Hey guys, welcome back to Confessions of a Doctorholic. This is Hafsa Slayman, and on today's episode, I'm so excited. I've got someone incredible. I've got the founder and CEO of Medic Footprints on air. So a little bit more about this person. So this doctor, she graduated in medicine from the University of Nottingham in 2006. She pursued a surgical career and did 18 months in trauma surgery in rural South Africa, which is crazy amazing. And then she returned to the UK. She co-founded Medic Footprints, and now she specialized in occupational medicine, passionate about female leadership, entrepreneurship, and apparently an ambassador for the English Blood Pea campaign. So I've got Dr. Abeyna Bubbers-Jones on air. How are you?
Hi, thank you. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
I may have stalked you.
Picked me up and I'm like, yeah, I did that.
I may have stalked your LinkedIn as well.
Oh my God.
A fair bit.
I think my story, I've tried to share it widely, just as an example of what you can do outside of like the traditional medical pathways. So
that's amazing. So to be honest, I came across Medic Footprints last year. So I was looking at things that I wanted to do. I was like, I'm not the stereotypical medical student. I mean, I open up the books. I like studying and whatever, but I just don't want to be just that medical student that's like good at reading and studying. And I looked at this article that said you could work on a cruise ship and travel around the world that way. And that was on your website.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was just marathoning through articles. I was so impressed.
Yeah. There's lots of really cool stuff you can do. That's either like their kind of package for you, or you can just create your own journey or job or experience or hobby. I like the create your own.
Cool.
I mean, it takes a bit more work, but it's amazing when you get there, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm interested. How did Medic Footprints start?
Like when you kind of have to apply for medical school, and you have to show that you are more than just an academic, even though that's like really important. You have to demonstrate all these kind of other extracurricular stuff. So I came from a quite a strong background of music, and I went to Trinity College, Royal College of Music, and when I had to choose what I would do, it was either going to be musical medicine. And also like had a whole load of other interests like acting, ballet, you name it. So I did a lot when I was like younger. So
that's
going
so cool.
into medical school, like all of that kind of falls down by the wayside unless you're like really proactive, which I did some stuff. It kind of, especially towards the clinical years, it can get quite challenging to kind of keep that up alongside having to do your exams and coursework and placements and stuff like that. And then actually working as a doctor, even more pressure to try and like balance it properly if you've got other extracurricular commitments. So as I got older, it was just becoming that much more difficult to kind of keep up all the other interests. And also you just get tired more so than usual. So I ended up at a point, I think, after about 2 years in medicine, thinking I really need to get out of this day-to-day work. I enjoy the fundamentals of it, but it wasn't what I expected. I found that the work was predominantly administrative, and I don't know, I didn't really get as much from it as I was expecting, put it that way. And I was looking to see how I could expand my experience in medicine, but also like look to do other things. And usually when doctors are looking at other things, or they even leave medicine, traditionally in the culture, it's people don't really talk about it. It all happens secretly behind closed doors. It used to be very much a taboo thing, because all the doctors in the UK, they're trained through the public sector predominantly, and it's predominantly a public sector training pathway, which works really well. But at the same time, it's an institution, and the institution is governmental, and the way of thinking isn't so expansive as, say, you would get in a private sector organization or a different sector. So you're not really encouraged so much to think outside the box. So traditionally, because this has changed, there wasn't enough scope for like supporting innovation or entrepreneurialism within the job that you were doing. Not much in a way for medics to kind of go into leadership or management roles. unless you did that proactively in your own time, of top of all of your college exams. So that's when I took the break after my surgical training. I decided to go to South Africa because I heard someone who's come back from there and said it was amazing. I'd never been to South Africa in my life. I had no ties there. And literally, I got there and it was just the most incredible period of my life, because I mean, I was still working in healthcare. I was still a doctor. I was still a surgeon. But, you know, it was just having that different perspective on approaching health, public health, a different population. Trauma was like proper trauma. Like, you know, like stabbings, gunshots were like standards every day. We did trauma laparotomies pretty much every day. Burns, like amputations, like late presentations of chronic health conditions. So you don't see them so much here, like in like Western culture. But like because it was semi-rural, you also saw that late presentations of people that came from like very rural areas who had traveled for, you know, sometimes days but hours, and like diabetic foots, like really bad diabetic foots. So it was amazing. It really changed my perspective on medicine. And I loved medicine again as a result of that. Had it not been for that experience, I don't know what I would have done. So I went back to the UK, and then I started feeling like, again, I had the same issues. So I was like, hey, I'm not really sure about this anymore, because it was going back to the same system. And then I think that's when I realized that I really needed to, and I loved medicine, but also needed to expand and create my own training pathway in life, so to speak, beyond a medical training pathway. And because there was no conduit or vehicle to enable doctors to easily do that, that's when Medic Footprints was started. And so since then, it's just grown into a resource, network, community, like sharing stories and experiences and jobs and events and a whole range of different things. And I've really found it useful for my own personal journey, because I've met so many amazing doctors and medical students throughout the world, because we're UK based predominantly, but we have a global readership, or global people on a newsletter. And we started Medic Footprints Malaysia like late last year as a result of one of the Malaysian doctors who have been kept in touch with. He was also looking to leave medicine but needed some kind of support, like you needed a lot of pastoral support and emotional support to make that decision to move. So we were looking to really expand, but at the same time, Medic Footprints has been a great learning opportunity, not just from building the community, but also learning about business, organizations, management, all of that stuff that I never learned as a medic. And I learned it from scratch. People will go to do an MBA and all of these different things, and I basically learned this just off the ground. And you make mistakes, but you move through it, and it's been amazing.
So have you always dreamt of this? Have you always dreamt that you open up this company called Medic Footprints, and have you imagined that you'd reach this far?
Not at all. Not at all. When you sign up to become a medic, that's all you can see. That's all you have to choose what degree you'll do, and where it's either medicine or law, and then you're kind of assumed that you're going to do that for the rest of your life. But obviously the world of work has changed massively, especially in the last 10 years. Then you realize that actually the scope of what it means to work is actually way more diverse than it ever has been. So it's no longer one job for life. It's actually you can move jobs every three years for most people. I say outside of the medical sector. You can be self-employed, you can earn a lot of money on YouTube and social media. Do you know what I mean? There's so many avenues that people can explore using technology that weren't there previously. So it's no longer one job for life. And I think it's really important for people who are going into medicine to realize that, because because I see a lot of my colleagues like myself get burned out from working in healthcare, because even though you can get a lot from it, you do give a lot to it. And for the most resilient person in the world, you will need some time out, and you will need some balance to kind of step away from it. And if you look at the kind of people that go into medicine, they're always like high achievers, high performers, perfectionists.
Yeah.
And these are the people that are like the most at risk of like suffering the consequences of, you know, working in healthcare. So yeah.
I can imagine, like, when you start something initially, it's so hard to gain viewers and to gain that traction. How did you gain that traction?
Gosh, I have to look back. So again, it was completely a learning experience over time. There was a lot of networking, which I wasn't consciously doing, but essentially, you know, we'd go and present at conferences, we'd write articles, we would have these networking events in London where I can't remember how I even reached out to people for them to come in the first place. I can't remember, but we managed to, you know, over the years we just built up this mailing list through our website, predominantly using social media to spread the word, really. At the beginning, it was me and my friend Sarah. She's a non-medic, so it was really good for us to get together. And she had more business experience, and I had like the topical experience.
Yeah.
And then when she left a few years later, I basically had to take on all the stuff that I had no idea about, which was like the accounting and the business and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was all about learning about business and marketing and advertising and getting our name out there. But most of it is about relationships, really. It was about connections with people and having genuine conversations with people, kind of like the conversation we're having now, and maintaining those over time as well. I think one thing that really worked for me from a personal perspective was like, I'm just, you know, quite a genuine person. I don't sugarcoat things much. And like just very open about my struggles as well as the gains. And you know, when you do show your vulnerability publicly, people do latch onto that because they identify with it. And it might not be something that they themselves have been able to talk to anyone else about because of fear of shame and failure and all of that stuff that comes with particularly being a high achiever. So
100%. That's amazing. And to be honest with you, like, I was kind of surprised by your voice because I could tell, like, that's one thing you learn on the radio. You can sort of tell when you talk to people, like, you can identify some things in their personality. And I completely agree. I feel like you are definitely a very open person, and like, you sound friendly, you know, like I haven't interacted with you in person, but I feel like just through the podcast, like, I just want to be your friend.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like, it does. No, I'm not even joking. Like, there are some people, like, I've heard so many voices.
I guess
it's weird. Like, now I started, like, I literally like notice people's tones and like if the voice is sexy or not. You know?
It does make a
things like
actually,
that.
No, it definitely does.
It does, 100%. Okay, so how long do you reckon it took you to get from that starting point to like where you wanted to take
my gosh. So if I started Medic Footprints again, I would do it so differently. But this is what happens when you start an organization, community, or whatever. And there was a lot of kind of working out on the way. And it's still going on, working out what we are, what we're doing, because it changes with the sea and the times, and it's dynamic. So we never, I mean, even though we had a business plan, we started off as a recruiting type agency. I mean, it's completely different from what it was. We didn't really, I didn't really have in my mind exactly what I wanted it to look like, but I think the main focus was really like a community organization. It was predominantly supposed to be UK, but it ended up being global because we were sharing a story and a lifestyle that actually resonated with doctors across the world, which was really interesting. So it wasn't intended, but that's what's happened. And yeah, I mean, the idea was to actually have it predominantly advertising jobs and things like that, but actually predominantly it's more stories and content and stories, case studies, articles, and how to get into medical writing, how to get into management consultancy, you know. And the webinars really are useful because it gives people a framework and how to get into, like, you know, some of the really popular sectors that doctors are looking to do, like management consultancy, pharma is quite popular, lifestyle medicine has become really popular over the last few years. So yeah, it's not quite what I expected, and even now it is evolving. But I think the most important part of what we've done is that we've made it a public resource and forum, because I'm not saying there wasn't other stuff out there, but I say growing up in the medical world, we had doctors.net, but that was very kind of inward facing. And I completely understand that, because it's also about privacy. But then, if you're someone that's just searching for something that's a bit out there on the net, you won't find it. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we were findable for people who were looking to do something a bit different and just share that story, really.
All right, so I'm going to leave yous on a cliffhanger. I'm going to talk to Dr. Abeyna about her challenges on the next episode. Stay tuned.